Hello everyone! I hope you're ready for another adventure, because today, Wayne reads Dinosaur Mysteries. With these educational stories, always remember that all you have to do if you want to follow along with the words is press the CC button in your YouTube link. Now I believe that Madam Owl will be perfect to join us for today's adventure. Now that Madam Owl is here, let's jump in and learn. Dinosaur Mysteries Chapter 2, Supersaurus and the Sauropod Mysteries. It was midsummer. The tall man's face and clothes are damped with sweat, and he is covered with white plastered dust. At his feet lies an odd-shaped block of plaster with a heavy iron chain wrapped around it. The block weighs several tons, yet the tall man's acts as if it were fragile as a teacup. He signals to a younger man that controls a truck with a winch on it. The crane on it rises, tightening the chain slowly, gently. The driver eases the great block onto the bed of the truck. The tall man relaxes. He has just lifted the bone of an unknown dinosaur, the biggest dinosaur ever discovered. Safely coated with plaster to keep it from getting broken, the bone can now be taken away from the place where it has been lying for over 140 million years. When the plastic is chipped off, scientists can study the bone in museum. Visitors can marvel at its size. This happened in August 1979. A dinosaur dig in western Colorado. The site was Dry Mesa Quarry, sometimes called just the Bone Hole. The tall man who dug up the bone was the scientist nicknamed Dinosaur Jim. His real name is James Jensen, and he has discovered more new kinds of dinosaurs than any other person in North America. Bones from 12 of the new ones came from Dry Mesa Quarry. Many of them are being studied in Dr. Jensen's laboratory at Brigham Young University in Utah. Of course, these aren't like the chicken or fish bones you leave on your plate after dinner. They have been lying buried in the earth for so long that mostly turned to stone. Such bones are called fossils. Dr. Jensen began digging in the quarry in the summer of 1972. Some friends had seen a stony bone sticking out of the rock in Dry Mesa. Knowing that fossils should be removed only by experts, they telephoned Dr. Jensen, who came to investigate. One of the first things he uncovered was the end of a very large shoulder bone. He could tell it had belonged to a plant-eating dinosaur because it looked as if it had been filled with little holes, like a sponge where animals were alive. The bones of meat eaters are harder and seem to be made in layers. The farther Dr. Jensen dug around the shoulder bone, the more it amazed him. Completely uncovered, it was around 8 feet long. No plant eater known at that time had a shoulder bone that big. Soon, Dr. Jensen found the dinosaur's neck bones. The greatest measured 5 feet in length. This creature had a neck so long, it could have looked over the roof of a 4-story building. The tallest dinosaur ever discovered could only have looked over a 3rd-story window. This had to be new and a super kind of dinosaur. Dr. Jensen nicknamed it Supersaurus. Who would have guessed that just 7 years later, in 1979, Dr. Jensen would find an even bigger shoulder bone in Dry Mesa Quarry. This one was 9 feet long, and it did not look like the Supersaurus bone. It was shaped different. That's how Dr. Jensen knew it did not just belong to an even bigger Supersaurus, it was a bone from an even larger creature. One of Supersaurus's relatives. Dr. Jensen called it Ultrasaurus. Ultrasaurus could have looked into the windows of a 6-story house. If you think that Supersaurus and Ultrasaurus do not sound like real dinosaur names, you're right. The scientist who discovers a new kind of animal gets to give it a name that will set it apart from all others. Often the name is Greek or Latin word for something about the animal that is unusual. If it is a dinosaur, the name extends with the Latin word saurus, meaning lizard. For example, Brachiosaurus was the first dinosaur known to have front legs, that is arms, that were longer than their back legs. Its name means arm lizard. Dr. Jensen says he does not yet know enough about Supersaurus and Ultrasaurus to give them their final scientific names. So for the time being, their nicknames will just have to do. What did Supersaurus and Ultrasaurus look like? Dr. Jensen believes they were members of a family of dinosaurs called sauropods, which means lizard feet. Sauropods were huge plant eaters and walked on all fours. They had rather small heads, long necks, and heavy bodies. Some other dinosaurs in the sauropod family were Brachiosauruses, Brontosauruses, Diplodocus. Supersaurus and Ultrasaurus looked almost like long-armed Brachiosaurus. For 150 years after the first sauropod bones were discovered, most scientists thought they knew how the animals lived. A sauropod, they said, must have been a sluggish creature that waded in lakes and swamps, eating water plants. Its great body seemed too heavy for legs alone to carry, so it was supposed to have stayed most of its time in water, which buoyed it up as if it were inner tube with legs. In water, it would have been safer from attacks by ferocious meat-eating dinosaurs that lived on land. It would only leave the water long enough to lay eggs on the sandy shore. Those were the old ideas about sauropods. Almost everyone believed them, but new ideas began to upset the old ones at the time Dr. Jensen discovered Supersaurus. For example, a young scientist named Robert Baker said he didn't think sauropods were swamp dwellers. Their toes were stumpy and short like elephant toes, and their big, giant legs formed pillars strong enough to support their bodies. Sauropods, like elephants, seemed built to live on land. If a sauropod had been wading animals, it would probably have resembled a hippopotamus, which has short legs and spreading toes. True. It would also have had a short neck like a hippo, because most water plants grow in shallow places. Other scientists realized that sauropods would not have been safe from meat eaters, even in the middle of a deep swamp. Giant crocodiles would have been lurking there. Crocodile jaws 6 feet long would have snipped the slender sauropod's necks in one crunch. What use would sauropods have for such a long neck? Like giraffes, they could have reached up to eat the leaves from the tops of trees. That would have been very suited for them as well. Being so big, they needed to eat a lot, and they would have had the treetop food supply all to themselves. A whole bunch of big dinosaurs ate tons of plant food a day, which would quickly strip a forest bare. Soon, all would have to move on and search for trees. Does this mean that sauropods travel together in herds? There seems to be proof that they did. Thousands of fossil footprints have been discovered in foot rock, which millions of years ago was soft mud. In one place, the tracks show about 23 sauropods were living together in the same direction. At another location, footprints of young dinosaurs appear in between groups of larger tracks, protected on both sides. The young ones would have been safe from meat eaters. In fact, the herd itself would have been protection for all its members. Not even a big Gorgosaurus would have dared to attack a herd of towering sauropods. It would have waited for stragglers or for some animal easier to kill. One mystery that has puzzled scientists for a long time is beginning to clear up. They know that some dinosaurs lay eggs. Whole nests of them have been discovered, but not even a scrap of fossil eggshell has been found with sauropod bones. Why? Dr. Jensen believes that young sauropods were probably born alive. Think how gigantic the egg of so large a creature would have to be in order to hold the insides of such a huge egg together. The shell would have to be very thick. To break out of a shell that thick, Dr. Jensen says, a baby dinosaur would need a jackhammer. People trusted the old ideas about sauropods for a long time. It took a great deal of studying and thinking to imagine that they were forest dwellers, moving about in groups. One person, who found the new ideas hard to believe, asked, wouldn't sauropods march closer together, trampled on one another's long dragging tails? Wouldn't there be lots of broken tail bones in quarries? This brings us to mystery of missing tails. It started with something puzzling about a group of fossil sauropods footprints in Texas. Prints of dragging tails should have been there too, but they were not. Why? Perhaps the tails did not drag at all. Some bone experts now believe that the sauropod was built rather like a bridge. The kind of tall towers and cables, muscles like bridge cables, would have helped held the tail in air. Another mystery was sauropods' dull, peg-shaped teeth. How could they grind up tough plant food? Perhaps sauropod only nipped up leaves and twigs and swallowed them without chewing. Maybe the chewing was done in their innards. Some scientists believe they must have had gizzards like present-day chickens. A gizzard is a kind of pouch with a rough, hard lining. Here, tons of food could have been ground up with help of pieces of rock that the dinosaur swallowed. Smooth, rounded belly stones or gastroliths are often found with dinosaur bones. These had once been rough rocks, but were smoothed down as they helped the gizzards grind. Perhaps sauropods had several inside pouches, like extra stomachs, that helped to make use of rough and not very nourishing food. Cattle, deer, and some other animals have special inner organs or pockets in their intestines where bacteria live. These bacteria aren't harmful germs. They're the kind that can digest rough plant foods better than the animal's own stomach juices can. Inside a sauropod, bacteria might have gotten their own food by digesting whatever the big animal swallowed. At the same time, the bacteria created leftover substances that dinosaurs could digest. All these ideas help explain the sauropod's strange shapes. They were the heaviest in the middle because they needed space for grinding and digesting tons of food. They walked on all 4 feet in order to support their food factory stomachs. Their heads had to be rather small and light so they can lift them to the tops of trees. Scientists are still puzzled about sauropod hearts. How could they have pumped blood high enough to reach heads 60 or more feet above the earth? The pumps themselves would have had to have been enormous and very well designed. Brachiosaurus's heart is thought to have weighed over 100 pounds. Ultrasaurus must have had an even bigger one. Was Ultrasaurus the biggest dinosaur that had ever lived? No one knows. Someday, Dr. Jensen, or someone else, may dig up an even bigger creature. Well, that is a lot to really understand. But I believe that Madame Owl was perfect. Did you like that story, Madame Owl? I thought that you did. I'll see you in the next one, okay? And we'll see you in the next time, here with Wayne Reads. Thank you for joining us as we learn about dinosaurs. We can't wait to see you in the next time. Bye-bye.